Welcome to the Landlord Lease Podcast, a training course for landlords to understand how to create a lease. Sponsored by VeteranLandlord.com. And now your host, Edward O'Daniel.
Hello and welcome to the Landlord Lease Podcast, sponsored by VeteranLandlord.com. My name is Edward O'Daniel. I'll be your host on this show, and I want to just say thank you so much for listening in. I'm totally pumped to bring this content to you. So right now, this particular episode, what we're going to do is really just kind of explain the layout, the format of this podcast. This is episode 0. So right now, I'm just trying to help understand how this sort of training series is going to go. This will not be an ongoing podcast. This will be a very limited, sort of very tightly condensed training material that's going to help landlords across the country understand the lease and just how valuable the lease is to a landlord and how it can lead to either success or failure, believe it or not, in your rental property and landlording business. So a little bit about me. I started managing property back in 2005. And in that particular time, there was really not a lot of material out there regarding landlords, how to set up an effective landlording business or rental property business, or how to set up policies, procedures, or best practices in place. I had to go find stuff everywhere. I had to go to boot camps, get a little bit from this person, get a little bit from that person. And it was only after trial and error of making mistakes and having tenants move into a particular property. Well, instead of tenants, I really refer to them as residents. So you might hear that term go back and forth between, but having a resident move into a property only to find out that you really didn't clearly define your relationship between yourself and the resident because it wasn't explained in the lease. So this is where I found out the most important part of having a lease structure and having everything that you want to have defined inside of a lease. When I first started, I think my lease may have been 3 pages worth of material. Now it's probably 18 pages worth of material, just to give you a heads up, because of all the additional information that I've added over years and years and best practices and moving somebody in and finding out, oh, I don't have something regarding this in the lease. So I need to make sure I put it in there. So this, what I'm going to bring you is really an accumulation of just a decade and a half's worth of trial and error, as well as best practices, gathering information, and putting all this stuff into one place. Now, all of this information I'm going to go over in this podcast can be easily accessible through VeteranLandlord.com. It's a free site. Log in, go ahead and create your account. This particular document that we're going to be going over will be lease term definitions. This will be inside of the document library under landlord documents. So in case you want to go back and find it and download your own copy of this. So I'm totally pumped to sort of bring this. This is a project that I've been wanting to work on for quite some time because a lot of times I get questions after questions when I'm on either speaking in front of RIA group clubs or talking to clients about the rental property business. It's just, how do I do this? How do I do that? You know, what do I need to have in my lease? And not only that, how do you sit down and actually explain or answer questions regarding your lease to people who ask you a simple question? And this is a true story. I actually had I borrowed a lease when I first got started here, completely stole it. I'm just going to admit it, from a mentor of mine that I had. They gave it to you on some CDs, but I used their lease just right out of the bat without even really reading it. I just said, here's a lease. Let me go ahead and use it. Change some information on it, write this person's name on it and some other information, and there's my lease. Well, the problem is I didn't even really understand what was in the lease. I didn't really understand what the lease said. Not only that, I wasn't even quite clear when the resident asked me questions like, what exactly does this mean? What is this clause mean? I couldn't explain it to them, and it really made me feel stupid. I had to backtrack a little bit and actually just say, you know what? I'm not sure my attorney prepared this, so let me get some clarification and I'll get back to you. So I actually had to backtrack on that. It was really quite embarrassing, and it kind of made me feel unprofessional. So this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to create this training course, this podcast for Landlord Lease, is just to explain the importance of a lease, what the lease clauses are, and how the lease clauses can be used to protect you. Not only that, what kind of information you should have in these particular clauses. Now, I'm going to pause here and just kind of let you know that I'm going to be giving notices across every episode that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. The stuff that's in this document, a lease is a legal document. And right now, because things change from state to state, I want to make sure that I give you the best information possible. So I'm going to try to keep things as generic as possible. But for your particular state, I would definitely have to recommend contacting an attorney. Once you have a lease put together, have an attorney prepare it, or at least look over it to make sure that nothing that you have in there is in violation of your state laws, rules, or regulations, or in your particular state, you may have specific items that need to be put into your lease that may not be in the lease that you get from somebody in your existing lease, or even the one you could download from veteranlandlord.com. So I do want to present that notice out because rules change from state to state. Not only that, from city to city, it varies. Now, for me personally, I'm in the St. Louis, Missouri area. I'm just going to throw that out there. And we have probably 35 different cities or municipalities that we have to deal with in our area. Believe it or not, it's crazy. And each one of them have different rules on what's going to take to rent a property, or how do you handle a property, or what do you need to do to a property to get it prepared to rent. So I would have to urge you that if you're new, or if you're just getting into the rental property business, please research your market. Go down to the local city hall or municipality and find out what the rules are regarding being a landlord. Do you have to register? Do you have to have inspections on your property? What is it that you need in order to stay compliant? Because the last thing you want to do is be ignorant, not do something you're supposed to do, and then have your property in a sense shut down or even possibly condemned. And I've had that happen on one of my properties where the municipalities have literally condemned it, and the resident had to stay somewhere else for a couple of weeks while we got that problem fixed. It was rather embarrassing. But I'm bringing this to you so that hopefully these type of issues don't happen to you, and we can just give you the best information possible. Again, I'm really pumped about this here. This has been a thought in my mind for at least the last couple of years, and I'm just excited to finally get to the point where I can bring this information to you, share it with you, and help you improve so that your business can grow leaps and bounds faster than mine did back in 2005 when I got started, because I can tell you, I didn't have a central resource like this. I didn't have a place I can go that really gave me all the information I needed to explain, in this kind of case, the lease, all of the different clauses, so that in case a resident that moved in did have a question about the lease clause, what does this mean exactly? What does that mean exactly? I had to do a lot of reworking on my particular lease because the one I had initially had the terms, and you'll find these different leases where it'll be lessee or lessor. That's sort of an old-fashioned type of communication. My lease was very cryptic, the very first one I used, and I didn't like it because of the way it was worded. It wasn't in layman's terms. It wasn't like in normal speaking words. It was, it sounded really weird, and a lot of people were confused and asked a lot of questions about the lease. So over the years, I've actually rewritten it and completely redone it to where it's just in common, ordinary language, making it very easy to read and very easy to understand. Also, I'm just letting you know that I use the term management and resident in the leases and the information that you'll get from Veteran Landlord. Just to let you know, you can easily, if you want to move back to lessor, lessee, perfectly well up to you. Just simply download the documents. They're all editable. You can copy and paste or click replace. Find find management, replace with lessor, whatever you want to do. These documents are completely free and open for you to edit. So I just wanted to let you know what to expect. My philosophy on this, I don't like necessarily using lessee, lessor because it's old fashioned. I don't actually like using the term tenant, believe it or not. Tenant to me is sort of an old fashioned negative word where it says landlord and then tenant. I think those are kind of a little bit outdated. That's just my opinion personally. So I'd much rather use the just term management and resident. I think it's just much more friendly, and just I really haven't had much of an issue with it here. And again, you want to make sure, again, this protects you too, because if you're renting out your property, you may not want to let the people know that you're the actual owner of the property. So you're not the owner or the landlord per se on the lease, you're the manager or the management. So this is where it could get definitely better for you by having you just say, hey, I'm just the manager here. And it gives you a little anonymity with this. So you can actually do that. Just, hey, I'm just the manager. I can go ask the owner and just see if he wants to do that. But that kind of takes the pressure off of you, because believe me, when I had the landlord and that terminology where it's lessor, that kind of put me up on the chopping block. And when my residents started asking me questions about stuff here, they knew that the buck stopped with me. So that really put a lot of pressure on me right then to sit back and come up with the decision versus just being the manager, where of course you have to go ask permission. You can't make that kind of a judgment call. You have to get the owner's permission. And again, they don't need to be in contact with the owner. They just need to know that the owner is not you, and that all you're doing is managing and facilitating this particular lease with them. So anyway, that is a little background regarding that. Again, totally pumped on here. This is just, again, the very first episode where we're kind of getting started here. This is probably going to be less than 10 episodes total. In this, we do have 40 or 50 different lease clauses, and I'll also include some other excerpts from leases that we currently have in use. And I just want to introduce not only the terms and what the lease terms mean, the definitions for the lease terms, but just kind of give you some real world perspective and the kind of information you should have in there. So, hey, stay with me here, and I'm hoping you get a lot of information out of this. So please just go ahead and listen to the next episode, and we'll see you then. Have a great day, and thanks so much, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Landlord Lease Podcast. To get your free lease and other training material, visit us at veteranlandlord.com and create your free account. If you find this material valuable, we'd appreciate it if you can share this podcast with others and leave us a great review.